All right, let's call the meeting to order. Kevin, can we get a roll call, please?
Yes, sir. Chairman Hinchelwood. Vice Chairman Davenport.
Here.
Board Member Hazelwood.
Here.
Board Member Hotchkiss.
Here.
Board Member Vroman.
Here.
Board Member Walker. Board Member Winters.
Here.
Chairman, we have a quorum.
Policy of the Commonwealth of Virginia and the City of Suffolk is clearly stated in the Virginia Wetlands Act as follows. Shall preserve and prevent the despoliation and destruction in this jurisdiction or accommodate necessary economic development in a manner consistent with wetlands preservation. The first order of business is to approve the minutes. Has everybody had?
Move they be approved.
Second.
Do that by voice vote, and all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right. Minutes are approved.
All right. Moving right along. So tonight, on the agenda here, we're going to discuss 6766 Burbage Grant Landing Circle and the continued violation that we've been, in the discussion of that violation that we've been dealing with. Now, I believe Kevin set up and everybody here has had a chance to go back out.
I was not available.
You were not, so you didn't get a chance, okay? But, Mr. Wyman, you were ready? Not sure how to start this discussion.
I can provide a brief recap and bring us to where we are right now.
Please.
Obviously, we are all quite familiar with the site. It was first brought to our attention in late April, so it's been a little over a year at this point. Obviously, the pandemic has had a role in that because y'all weren't meeting for several months. But we posted a violation and a sworn complaint, a notice of restoration hearing in July. That was after y'all's first meeting back post the closure of the city council chambers to meetings. A restoration hearing was held August 20th. They were given until October 5th to file a restoration plan, and that happened at your meeting in October. Well, I'm sorry, it did not happen. You gave, at your October 15th meeting, you gave the property owner 14 additional days to submit that plan. And one was received in late October. You accepted it on November 19th, and the initial deadline to come into compliance was December 5th. At that point, while I think it was noted that some restoration was removed, or some of the outstanding violation was removed, not all of it. So we continued to work with the property owner and the representative. And at your meeting on January 21st, this was your last meeting in which you discussed this item. An extension was given to coincide with a notice of violation that VMRC has issued. VMRC issued a notice of violation on their jurisdictional waters. So where y'all's ends at mean low tide, theirs begins, and it goes to the bottom. And the boat ramp was located in their jurisdictional waters. As of now, VMRC has not been out to the site to verify compliance with their NOV, which did expire March 21st. Well, around that date. My understanding is that they had to hand deliver it, so that validity date is actually probably closer to early April. However, they've not been back to verify it. The last site visit the board members conducted was April 15th. That I do have some pictures that I'll share with you from that site visit. And it revealed largely that the boat ramp, at least in your jurisdictional wetlands, had been removed. There's still some debris that remains within your jurisdictional wetlands, However, I think by and large, if I had to estimate, about 85% has been removed since this time last year. So here is, if you recall, the narrative that was provided with the restoration plan. It outlined what was to be removed. Additionally, they did specify that they would return to previous condition or the same as neighbor condition. We've debated that point in the past and what that means, and I think it would be appropriate to discuss that this evening. Here is the drawing that they provided with it that showed what was to be removed, and it shows that they would remove the tile and concrete block that had been placed, including the boat ramp. These pictures date back from April 30th, so about a year ago. This was the site that was observed, the conditions. A lot of those kind of concrete tiles were noted. And then this was the first follow-up back in December. And you can obviously observe a lot of that tile, concrete tile, was removed. However, there are still some remnants here and there. Additionally, the boat ramp in its entirety was still there. And this is a little bit more difficult to see. I do have some full-page pictures, but I did want to illustrate. On the top left, you have that April 30th inspection a year ago. You have a pretty similar angle on that top right photo, which was December. And then facing the other way, that bottom photo was from the April 15th inspection. Here are two photos from that April 15th inspection looking at kind of the remnants of the boat ramp and then looking back towards the pier, which would be north. Here's another comparison. I chose this photo because you can see at the very top right of the right-hand photo what the boat ramp looked like. And this was the best picture we had of the boat ramp at our most recent inspection on April 15th. So that essentially concludes my staff report on this item. As I noted, this is brought forward for continued discussion, and at this point, any action that the board deems necessary or appropriate at this juncture.
Representative is here for the property. Are they continuing to work on this? Could we ask him?
Certainly, yeah.
Good evening.
Good evening.
How are you today?
I'm good.
All right, well, when we were out there a couple weeks ago, yes, there was a lot of the debris that was removed from our jurisdiction, but there still is substantial amount, probably 15–20%, plus a lot of clutter and trash in that same wetlands area. And I'm just wondering, are they going to continue to clean that up? They still working on it?
I believe he's still working on it, and actually he's planting some of the tree also, the bushes below all those concrete too. So he's cleaning it up more every day. Yeah. So he work full time, so he only do it on Sunday. So it's take time, but.
All right, and so has VMRC, you said, Kevin, they have not been out there to look at the site to know whether they're satisfied or not?
They have not been out to the site since, I believe, the Marine Police delivered the notice of violation, which would have been, I believe, late March, or early April. My understanding is that they delivered their notice certified mail initially, and it got returned. So there's potentially a couple weeks involved from that March 21st date.
We're a year into this, and we need to keep moving forward and get some closure on at least the wetlands portion of it as quickly as we can.
Right.
Given some extensions and we keep moving the date back, hoping that things will get completed. They keep moving forward, and we are pleased about that. Don't get me wrong. I guess we're just progress.
Right.
Do they have any kind of end date when they think they can have it done?
Actually, he's kind of like doesn't really know exactly how you want everything to be. Exactly, so
Okay.
he's just trying to do, what he can. And I mean, if there's
Left that plan fairly wide open with just a stick man drawing. But the wetlands is that, and I guess we can, when we were out there with VMRC and we drew that map, we kind of encompassed all of it, not only VMRC's part, our part, plus the uplands part. So maybe there is some confusion from them on exactly what's left in that wetlands.
Yeah, I think if we can tell him exactly what need to, then he'll probably focus on what need to be done. Then having, doesn't know what, to work on.
I think between the combination of photographs and the exhibit provided as a part of that restoration plan, I think we could clearly outline what debris remains that needs to be removed. And essentially, anything that's unnatural or man-made that exists within that area would essentially be what needs to be removed. There's still some block located in that area per our most recent inspections. And
We geeks understand where our jurisdictions.
yeah.
I don't think the normal public probably understands
absolutely.
the various.
And I think utilizing the map that VMRC put together, we could clearly identify.
Okay, because it's probably for the layman, it's difficult for them to kind of get all these jurisdictions
Yes.
in their head straight.
It's hard enough for us.
Yeah. So maybe if we can help this gentleman out, and try to provide a little bit more clarity.
Absolutely.
Because if there is confusion, we wish we had known that before, so we could, if there are any other questions and anybody still doesn't understand, Mr. Wine is always available for a phone call. And he can relay that information to me and we, as a board, and we can do something about that and make sure that you guys have all the information you need to get it done the way we expect it to get done.
Okay,
So-
yeah, I think that would really help to know exactly what needs to be done. Then I can tell the property owner to focus on what needs to be done. So
Need some help with that, Kevin, on
No, I will be able to handle that, and if y'all authorize me to, I can
Yes, sir.
send a formal letter to, and I'll copy Mr. Nguyen on that letter to the property owner, and I'll utilize what technology we
pictures and
have.
some arrows.
Between pictures and the map, I believe, yes, we can relay this.
Is it appropriate to go out and with the homeowner standing there and say, this is what needs to happen? This block that you're looking at right there, which is a man-made block, that needs to go, that, if I was that's the homeowner, that's what I'd want, is somebody, tell me what I need to do.
Yes, certainly that would be appropriate.
Okay.
And as I noted earlier, VMRC is working to schedule a site visit on their own now. That's an opportunity that I could utilize to share that information.
Absolutely. Yep.
Because, you know, it is a little, you look at the picture with the boat, and you said all natural materials. You look in the picture to the right of the boat, you know, all that's got to go. You know, because it's not natural rock. I mean, it's something that obviously was put in,
At
it's
that
man-made.
point, I believe the remnants of the boat ramp
Yeah,
itself.
right. And then you look over on the one on the left, and that slab that's there, obviously that, you know, that's not natural. And, you know, but as I said, if I was on the receiving end of that, I'd want somebody to point out to me, this is all that needs to happen, and then you're good to go.
So just another question, and I know it's none of my business, but I'm gonna ask it anyway. Has the city come up with a plan for the uplands restoration?
So I spoke with our zoning administrator yesterday, and just for everyone's information, the planning department, we facilitate the Ches Bay program. Our zoning enforcement division enforces the provisions. So we looked back at some of the pictometry aerials that we have, basically very high quality satellite imagery that the city pays for. And going back to about 2010, we've noted that at least the northern portion of the concreting of the top of the bank, the north side of the pier, existed at that time. Moving along, you can see where the southern side of the pier becomes concreted. So we want to ensure that pursuit of the uplands results in a satisfactory outcome for all parties. And I'm going to meet with the zoning administrator further to outline a strategy for what we want to see there. It could, and just to throw out some variables here or potential outcomes. One, and the way we handle this sometimes is the full out removal of particularly the top of the bank concreting. I think that's the one thing we're concerned most with. Additionally, disturbance, sometimes after the fact disturbance in the upland area necessitates the need for a buffer restoration plan. And what that would mean potentially is that they could, well, I don't want to say potentially, we're not sure at this point, but the placement of vegetation to compensate for that disturbance. But I can say that a lot of my initial concerns as far as there's some hardening in that buffer that took place for some ornamental flower beds and things like that. Those have been in existence prior to 2010. So I'm not sure we have much of a legal ground to fight that. When it comes to the path, obviously I think there's a fairly new sidewalk that was constructed from the house porch to the pier. A wood path was noted in 2010. So it's important to keep that in mind as well. Both are impervious surfaces, and we're not sure if there was any approval mechanism for that previously. Lastly, I think it's important to note as far as the Ches Bay buffer is concerned, more often than not off of tidal waters, you have the 100-foot resource protection area buffer. Several subdivisions that were constructed in the mid-late 90s, very near the adoption of the original Ches Bay Act, petitioned City Council for exceptions, and they received a buffer reduction of 50 feet. This is one of the subdivisions, so obviously we would only be concerned with that first 50 feet from top of the bank. So we're going to continue to implement and design a strategy on how to attack the uplands. Part of the wait there was to see how successful this part was. And I think now we have a pretty clear vision.
Still in the works.
It's still in the works, and I believe we will.
2010, what's the magic number with 2010?
When items get, when violations find their way into the court system, there becomes the question of where does the burden of proof fall? And that could be a potential issue.
I got a question. Does the plan include the revegetation of the area? Is that what we understood it to be?
Well, I think that's why I noted on, when I mentioned item 4 of the restoration plan, I believe that topic had been debated previously. I think there are, in my opinion, the way I read that, restored to previous condition or same as neighbor, there's leeway to either allow it to revegetate naturally or to install vegetation similar to the neighbor, which, mind you, would necessitate filing a JPA in order to do that, because there may be potential grading involved. It would be a living shoreline. But I think that's a topic that is for discussion amongst the board.
Interestingly enough, in your picture you have right here, and from what I witnessed out there, is what they have removed, the grasses are coming back very well. Very well. And I think if they would remove the rest of the debris, I think the grasses would come back fine. Now, it depends on what happens to the uplands and whether the grasses survive.
I have a quick question for the representative of the homeowner. So the homeowner had an additional 60 days to comply with VMRC. Has there been any reason that the homeowner has been delayed in their compliance? We know they've been doing some work, but have there been any things that have kind of hindered the homeowner from completing the work that needs to be done?
With MRC, is that regarding to the boat ramp or?
Right, the removal of the boat ramp and some of the debris.
I thought he already removed the boat ramp, so. Is the boat ramp has not been removed? Last time when the boat come out, I think, isn't the boat ramp already removed? Because I asked him, I haven't been there lately, so I'm not sure, But to my knowledge, and I'm asking him, he said he's been removed, so.
Well, just the work in general, has there been anything within the past 60 days that has delayed the homeowner from completing the work that we've asked the homeowner to complete?
Well, of course, his sister have COVID, and with all those things going on, I am pretty sure there is a lot of delays, and just, and he was trying to work and doing all this at the same time. I mean,
does his sister live
at the same house?
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Sure. Yeah.
So, gentlemen, I think, this is one of those situations where, and I think as I conclude, I'm also interested in any recommendation or opinion from Ms. Carter. But this is a situation, it didn't happen overnight. And I think we all recognize that since the homeowner is doing this work themselves, the remedy is not going to take place overnight either. Additionally, there's been some illness. We've seen some progress. And one of the things that we wanted to do, I think as we discussed, we wanted to make sure that we time our work in conjunction with some of the work that VMRC is also doing out in that area. VMRC has not been back out there to inspect. Is that correct, Mr. Wine?
They have not, no, sir.
And so I think tonight it could be a little premature for us to take any action before VMRC has been back out to inspect the work that they requested prior to our last meeting. And so, it could be in order for us to grant another extension to the homeowner to continue to work, because work is taking place. That would allow VMRC time to come out and re-inspect. It would also allow Kevin time to, work with the homeowner to point out some specific items that need to be addressed within our jurisdiction. And hopefully the process of cleaning this up and restoring it will will continue. I think that's my recommendation for this evening. Ms. Carter, do you have any?
VMRC, and since the board was inclined to give more clear instructions to the property owner since he's doing it himself, I think that more time would be the best approach to allow that to happen.
Was VMRC's only rub the boat ramp?
That is the only thing that is clearly a violation within their jurisdiction.
Because I didn't know of anything else that they would have objected to.
Oh, they delegate the wetlands part to us.
Okay, right.
So they probably didn't want to step on our toes with that, like we don't want to step on their toes with their jurisdiction, which is subaqueous. So I concur with what Darius has said. Things are happening, and I really don't want to get in the way of the VMRC. That issue cleared up, and then we can move to the wetlands and then move. It's a logical transition here for continuing to get this property straight. I think it's important that we follow through and let them know exactly what is in our jurisdiction they need to get cleared up. And they're done with us.
Kevin? My question is, how long would it take for you and your associates, teams, to whatever, to pull together specifically what needs to be done in writing, then take that to them, or certified letter, but physically go there and be with them? How long do you think it would take to do that? Accomplish that goal?
Yeah, coordination of a site visit at this point can take probably about 2 weeks between parties.
And from that point, it would seem to me that if we gave them another 60 days, I'm just talking out loud, from the date, I guess, that you physically go there. Because then that way they could have there would not be any issue of communication. And you could send us by email copies of your correspondence, a summary of your meeting, and how that went, and the date you came, and then we go 60 days from there. So I would just amend what you say to go 60 days extension for the date that he physically gets there, so that way everybody's on the same page. I agree with everything you suggested.
That'll give VMRC their time,
Exactly.
and then it'll give us time, and that 60-day extension is, that's just for our wetlands version, and so that they can get that cleared up and be done with that part of it. And then it's all to the city on the.
Just one point, if I may make. I think we kind of left the discussion of vegetation hanging. It's my belief that the wetland board should say, yes, you're required to restore the natural vegetation there. I think we've made the point to this gentleman a couple of times before that, the vegetation should look just the same as it does on the neighbors on either side of that property. And that's key to the whole idea of making the wetlands and the buffer work, is that vegetation, which cuts down the erosion and filters the water, the pollutants out of the water before it goes back in there. So I think of any plan you give her, that we always need to mention that vegetation is a requirement.
I understand your point, but I think where we're maybe hung up a little bit is the or, original condition or, as the neighbors appear. So, one could argue the original condition, we don't know what the original condition was. So, and the stickman figure that we looked at, because I looked at that pretty close, it says clear the debris. It doesn't say and revegetate. And that's what we approved, if I'm right.
Their drawing shows vegetation,
On either side.
yeah.
That's the, I mean, if you go to the stickman drawing, which is what we approved, right? Can
Oh,
you-
yes.
Can you pull that up?
I'm fairly confident that in 60 days, if they remove the rest of that debris, that grass is
Already evidence that it's returning in the areas that are clean.
you know, if it doesn't, then we'll have some other decisions to make, but it's come back impressively. I was impressed with the amount of grass that had come back just in a short.
And it may be, not worth arguing about to see what happens, but in this drawing, there's nothing, the action is remove tiles and concrete block. There's nothing in there that says put vegetation in. I mean, there's a few sprigs of vegetation out there, but that's, I don't think that's indicative of the intent to vegetate it. I think the action is in the words.
Well, this is, of course, is where the difficulty comes with these boundaries that are drawn. When you get to the restoration of the 50-foot buffer, the law says pretty directly, will be vegetated. And if it isn't vegetated, will be revegetated. And if you want to remove vegetation, you've got to get approval first. So maybe I'm barking at the wrong tree here, but, we won't do any good if we just leave a piece of ground with no vegetation on it. We will not solve the problem, even if there isn't a bunch of concrete laying there.
I think part of the discussion we had before was that, the drawing may not indicate that there's vegetation, but making it look like the neighbors, when you look at the neighbors, there's clearly vegetation, on the neighbor, both properties where the neighbors are. And so that's the ultimate goal.
Gotcha, but there's an or in there, previous condition or. I mean, if you really get down to the semantics of it, either one would be acceptable.
One of the things that we also discovered when we went out there, as you remove those blocks, the same riprap that the neighbors have is under those concrete blocks. And so what you see with the neighbors, you see the riprap and the vegetation coming through. The removal of the blocks should expose the riprap that should be under them. Vegetation should be able to come back through the riprap, just like on both of the adjoining neighbor properties.
I may have missed it. I didn't see any riprap. Did you see riprap?
All the way down the whole side,
It's
from the
underneath
mouth of that creek.
Now, Mr. Winter, I concur with your concerns about making sure that it is a vegetated wetlands at the end. My biggest concern right now is if we hold them to revegetating that before they even work on that uplands part, as soon as they work on the uplands, that whole wetlands could collapse. And then we'd be back in here with the
I agree.
JPA.
These artificial boundaries that have been created
Yeah.
cause
Yeah,
a
yeah.
lot of problems.
So I think I think we can dovetail, if we wait on VMRC, I think we can dovetail our wetlands restoration, if you will, in with uplands restoration. Now, we don't have to wait until they have their restoration plan, but we'll know where they're heading. But with knowing that they've got to disturb so much on the uplands, I'd be real concerned about crashing the stuff below. I mean, I'm hoping what's there will continue to thrive during the uplands restoration. How tricky it is, if you move it an inch or two in height, it'll collapse. So
Probably would be helpful if the city could give the homeowner the whole picture. Here's what you need to do in the wetlands, and here's what you're going to need to do in the 50-foot buffer area.
so that's a zoning enforcement, man. That's Puzzle Palace in any city, really.
I'm saying, I think if you go,
That's Carla's nightmare.
If you go to them specifically and walk around the property, and you have it in writing, and you also visually show them, it's time and labor, your time, valuable time. But to me, that's the cleanest and clearest way to communicate. And that's really what seems to have been both sides' issues. If the team could do that.
We still have time, Mr. Winter, to require something. We have not made that, we just said get it all cleared out, and we'll go from there. And, once they peel that uplands back, they may need to come back in and stabilize something and get a JPA to do it properly.
Let me comment on that. When you say they may have to come in and stabilize, I don't know if we can legally require them to install riprap or a bulkhead.
I'm not sure we can make them, but they're gonna wanna harden their property, obviously they want it to.
Right.
And we would strongly encourage the homeowner
Sure.
to harden his property somehow, the proper way. But they may have to do that, because it's an unknown. I mean, everybody's kind of scared of what's gonna happen when they pull that bank up.
Right. I mean, obviously, like you said, they were trying to harden it. They didn't do it the right way. If they want to harden it, yes, they have to come back in with a
Help lead them
JPA.
to the right
Right.
way to do that. And I
Right.
feel like that's where we're gonna end up with anyway, even after this violation is cleared up. They're gonna have to harden their property. I don't think there's gonna be a lot left there. If grasses take off, you still don't have, you got to put some salt bush on the top to hold. So, I mean, that's gonna be the complex thing, is once our wetlands is done, then they start peeling the top back, they may have to come back in here.
Make more
to talk
sense,
to us.
more sense to do the top first and then,
Well,
and deal with it after that, yeah.
Make a motion this evening, do we?
Well,
Yes, we need
if,
to direct you to,
I recommend you make a
yeah,
motion.
I would say the same, and at this point, the last note I have is a 60-day extension from the date of a future site visit, in which we communicate what needs to be removed within your jurisdictional territory.
Right.
yes. Okay, so is that a good enough motion?
Second,
Second?
Had 2 seconds, but Mr. Roman, I think you beat him.
That was quick.
I just want my name in the minute. I want my name in the minute.
All right, so we have a first and a second. I'll call the roll. Chairman Hinchelwood,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Davenport,
Yes.
Board Member Hazelwood,
Yes.
Board Member Hotchkiss,
Yes.
Board Member Vroman,
Yes.
and Board Member Winters.
Yes.
All right, it moves by a vote of 6-0.
Probably,
Great recommendation, Mr. Vice Chairman.
the 60-day point will be somewhere in July, then, somewhere in that area. Right?
Give or take, yeah. I hope to, my hope is to get out by early mid-June.
We're entering
Yeah, and if they can get that wetlands taken care of quickly, then our concern of the grasses and the growth there
Yeah.
is gonna get taken care of. It should
That's
just grow right up in June, July, and August. It should flourish.
Very healthy system in that
Yeah,
channel, yeah.
seems to be. So,
Chairman,
yes, sir.
I was wondering, to make sure that he understands what we,
Yes, do you understand what we?
Yes, I understand. So obviously waiting for Kevin, to pinpoint out what exactly the owner have to do to clean up.
And you're gonna meet that day when Kevin comes out there?
I
you're
try,
gonna meet
yes,
with him?
I'll try to be
Great.
there and explain to them and.
Kevin, you can keep me in the loop on that if I can.
Absolutely, absolutely. Would you like to attend that site visit?
Yeah, I would.
Okay.
I would like to. Yes, sir. Anything else? Thank you for coming tonight.
Thank
We
you, gentlemen.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so that concludes that business. Okay. Is there anything else on the agenda? Nothing else. New business. I'll preface this with, we had a presentation a couple weeks ago from Mr. Cahoon on his oyster castle. So we were all talking about oysters and such. And my wife has been kayaking down Bennett's Creek for the past couple of months, which is right behind our house. And I just wanted to show people, if you haven't seen what a oyster bed looks like and how it protects the grasses, these pictures are perfect examples of that, how they'll harden that shoreline themselves. And so I like the idea. I still I actually went out to Windsor Castle to look at the job that Mr. Cahoon had said they were doing out there, just so I could get an idea. I encourage anybody to go out there. It's a beautiful park, number one. If you like to go take a walk, it's a great place to walk. But you can see a whole lot of the oyster castle or the ridges out there that they put in. And it's down near their kayak launch and that little boat pier back in the back. So I think, to me, that was a great project for Suffolk. I was excited about it. And I know Robbie Johnson would be excited about seeing these oyster beds as well. But Venice Creek is a very, very pristine creek. There are eagles flying around out there, and I encourage people, if you can, get out there and enjoy some. Sorry, I burdened you with all these pictures.
Oh, let's hear it.
They're beautiful oyster beds.
Let's hear it for the oysters.
If you like wetland stuff, that's
Oh, yeah,
it.
and they filter a lot of water, too. Each oyster.
It's
is
absolutely amazing, because up on the plateau where those grasses are, when it's high tide, that's where the shrimp they live in there. And so when the tide rolls out, those big fish sit just underneath those oysters. And you'll see them, man. They just slap those shrimp. I saw them catch some redfish out of there the other day. I was like, dang on, man. Anyway,
Thank you for sharing.
we have some beautiful places here in Suffolk, so if you get a chance. And I did send that to Ms. Taraski too, this morning, because I figured she'd like to see that. All right, thank you, Kevin, for indulging me on that. Anything else?
Nothing here?
Time to adjourn. Motion to adjourn.
All right.